let's assume for a minute that Abe Lincoln did something, renovated the White House or one of the rooms or something. I don't know that. I don't think you know that. Does that matter? Well, I mean, when we think of Abraham Lincoln, we think of what? He kept the Union together. He freed the slaves. Like, he's considered George Washington. I mean, George Washington owned slaves. George Washington did a lot of funky things, but he's also the father country. He helped defeat the British, and it's arguable that without George Washington, we would not be in America right now. We'd be speaking with a British accent. But the bottom line is, legacy is something that lasts forever. Legacy comes from works, not from things.
Well, and not every president has that level of legacy. There are few that we could name, right? I mean, so Kennedy probably being the most recent one, having the longest lasting legacy. And before that, it takes a while to go back and find the next one, right? You kind of have to go back to World War II. You have to go back to World War I. I mean, there's not every president, even Clinton and Bush and Obama don't have true big legacies. There's nothing out there that says, oh my God, this was because, right? It doesn't scream.
Right. So think about it this way. So Barack Obama will always be the first Black president.
Right. And there's no change.
No, I'm just saying, can't take, so 200 years from now, if you're reading a history book, you'll read, and I mean this, nothing against Obama, but I think the little blip will be first Black president. Joe Biden.
Nothing. It'll be nothing.
No, it'll be, he was the.
No, Clinton either. I mean, despite the controversies of his term, right? There'll be nothing.
He'll be the 46th president or whatever. Right. I'm just saying, no, I'm not trying to, you name the biggies, you name, Washington, Jefferson, Madison, maybe, and then you go to, and I'm going to miss a bunch, but then you go to Abraham Lincoln, and then you go to Teddy Roosevelt, and then you go, and then you go to Eisenhower, and then you go to FDR, and then you go
Kennedy.
Well, you go Nixon. Well, you go Kennedy. You go Nixon, and he's always going to be remembered for Watergate. And then I would suggest that that's about it.
Well, Reagan's probably going to be seen as the big patriot. That's what I think. It's the only other one that kind of gets Reagan. He'll get given that he kind of turned things around with Russia. He ended the Cold War. That'll be
okay. Yes, absolutely ended the Cold War. And then
Bush too. George D. gets it for the world, the war, the terror attacks, right? And of the Twin Towers.
Right. The Twin Towers. And then
that's not a legacy you necessarily want to hold on to.
That was going to be my point. There's two different kinds of legacies. We look at John F. Kennedy for what he did, and then of course
there's Bay of Pigs, right? There's
Bay of Pigs, and then
communism issues, and all kinds of stuff went on in Kennedy that weren't good.
Of course, he was assassinated.
But he was also the biggest civil rights changes ever, too.
Right, and he was assassinated, so people of a certain age will tell you exactly where they were when they found out. So that's part of the American thing. But then you got Nixon, who, and I'll be honest, I'm not a presidential scholar. Maybe Nixon did some great things, but that albatross of Watergate's always going to, and resigning is always going to hang around his neck.
Yeah, he tried too to leave a legacy of stopping wars and ending stuff, but he couldn't figure it out, right?
Well, he actually opened China. Remember, he's the first one to really open them.
Well, there's the positive legacy for him,
right? But
he's always going to be the Watergate president that resigned.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You say Nixon, Watergate, and I'm truly afraid that no matter how Donald Trump is trying to frame this, I think, at least in the decades to come, the legacy he is leaving is not the one he wants to leave.